My name is Elizabeth Gilliland Rands. I am an academic who got my PhD from Louisiana State University with my dissertation on Jane Austen adaptations, and I am also the author of the Austen University Mysteries series and the editor of the upcoming Jane Austen mystery anthology, Crime and Culpability. See more about those projects at the end of the video. And today, I want to talk to you about Jane Austen and Barbie. Let me take you back to the summer of 2023. It was the hottest recorded summer in over 2,000 years, which is perhaps why, for the first time post-COVID, people were streaming to the movies in droves. And of course, the huge movie news of the summer was Barbenheimer, the nickname coined for the competition between two massive films releasing on the same day, July 21st, 2023. In my household, we participated by taking turns going to the movies, so we wouldn't have to pay for a babysitter. Hashtag cheapskates. My husband saw Oppenheimer first, and I chose to see Barbie. If your experience was anything like mine, you walked into a theater full of pink, with a range of audience members from children with their parents to groups of teenagers to boomers out on date night. About an hour into the movie, at the 1 hour 7 minute 40-second mark to be more specific, Depression Barbie makes her debut on screen. We're told she wears nothing but sweatpants, is constantly on Instagram, and that, quote, she's going to watch the BBC's Pride and Prejudice for the 7th time until she falls asleep, end quote. The film then proceeds to show a short clip of Colin Firth as Mr. Darcy proposing to Jennifer Ely as Elizabeth Bennet in the episode 4 of the BBC miniseries. When I tell you I cackled, I cackled. I could tell who the women of my generation were by the isolated, intense laughter around the theater. The people who really got that joke got it, and I was high on my intense Janeite fandom in that moment. As some personal background, I spent last year and this year teaching high school English and assigning Pride and Prejudice to my 10th grade honors English students. I spent part of that time trying to convince my students that Austen adaptations are a huge part of the pop culture consciousness, that the lake dive was a big cultural moment, and that the BBC miniseries in particular had a huge impact not only on Austen adaptations, but also on all period dramas and the female gaze. I may or may not have written an entire chapter on this in my dissertation. Despite my best efforts, I could tell that some of my students thought I was just an out-of-touch old person who was way too obsessed with this thing that no one else cares about. Imagine my excitement at that exact adaptation being referenced in the biggest movie of the summer. Although, how much my students actually connected that remains unclear, since when I did the same lesson this year and showed them the clip of Mr. Darcy in the Barbie movie to show them its cultural importance, they asked me, quote, if I had added that into the movie. Would I spend my time making a deep fake cut of Mr. Darcy in the Barbie movie? Yes, but did I? No. Nevertheless, seeing the Pride and Prejudice reference in the Barbie movie was an overall exciting moment for me as an Austen enthusiast and an adaptation scholar. The more I thought about it, though, the more I began to wonder if this wasn't just some throwaway funny moment in the film. Of all the films screenwriter and director Greta Gerwig could have referenced in that moment, why did she make the very specific choice to reference the 1995 BBC Pride and Prejudice? The simple answer might just be, as I apparently told my students too many times, the BBC miniseries has had a massive cultural impact. Many Austen fans can intensely recall their experience of watching the series, usually sharing that memory with family members and friends. Streaming services and social media have kept the miniseries alive in the cultural consciousness by allowing repeated viewings and inviting new audience members into the experience. Many adaptations and period dramas that have followed have paid homage to tropes found in this miniseries. See more in my Virtual JaneCon presentation from last year and in my article on Bridgerton and the female gaze. Both are linked below in the notes. While all of this is true, though, I couldn't help but wonder, what if there was actually a deeper connection between Austen and Barbie, beyond just both being major pop culture icons? I'm here today to tell you that it's no coincidence that Gerwig chose Pride and Prejudice, nor is it a throwaway joke just intended for laughs. Austen and Barbie intersect in many surprising and unexpected ways, from their reception histories, their authors and audience, their cultural misunderstandings, and their scene-stealing male characters. Please note that I am just beginning my ponderings and research on the way these two texts overlap, and I'd love to hear any ideas that you have in the comments. Jane Austen was born in 1775 and published her first novel in 1811. She went on to publish an additional 3 novels before her death in 1817, and had 2 further novels published posthumously. She changed the literary landscape by positioning women's interests and concerns at the center of her stories. Adaptations of her novels, including reprintings with illustrations by Hugh Thompson, plays, films, TV series, video games, YouTube vlogs, musicals, radio dramas, operas, and more, have made her one of the most recognizable authors of all time, even 200 years after her death. The most recent film adaptation of her novel was Hallmark's Sense and Sensibility adaptation, which premiered February 24, 2024, though new fan retellings of her works are published almost daily. The first Barbie was sold in 1959 by creator Ruth Handler by Mattel Incorporated. According to History.com, the original Barbie was named Barbara Millicent Rogers and was based off the German doll Bild Lilly. Barbie revolutionized children's toys by becoming the first mass-produced toy in the US, with adult features, based off iconic film stars like Elizabeth Taylor and Marilyn Monroe. The doll has since evolved to have over 250 careers, and spin-off doll characters have included Ken, Midge, Skipper, and Christy, the first African-American Barbie introduced in 1968. In addition to being an iconic doll, Barbie has appeared in other merchandise, films, television series, and most recently in the 2023 film Barbie. Looking at both Austen and Barbie and their roles in the pop culture imagination, it's easy to see some quick parallels. Both are often presented as girly texts that are meant to appeal to a primarily female audience, despite interest from male-identifying communities. For example, see Rudyard Kipling's tribute to Austen from the perspective of World War I soldiers longing for home, or the number of fans in the gay community for all things Barbie. Despite their overtly girly presentations throughout pop culture, both Austen and Barbie have been re-examined in the past few decades for their feminist underpinnings. Austen is noted for granting her women characters agency in choosing their own destinies, even in a heavily patriarchal system with limited options for women. And though heavily criticized at various times in history for their unrealistic body proportions, Barbie dolls have more recently been praised for inspiring young girls to explore creative play and to aspire to have a variety of careers and life ambitions. Despite this, both Austen and Barbie have conversely also been claimed as icons of the far right. According to The Guardian, alt-right advocates like Milo Yiannopoulos have praised Austen's depictions of traditional gender roles and aspirations for marriage as the ultimate goal for women. Though conservatives famously decried the 2023 Barbie movie for its overtly feminist themes and quote-unquote wokeness, the reception history from conservative groups throughout Barbie's history has been far more positive overall. According to Dr. Miriam Foreman Brunel, for much of its history, the Barbie doll characterized conservatism and conformity, likely due to her overtly feminine presentation, embrace of consumerism through the variety of dolls and outfits and products to buy, and her traditionally attractive aesthetics. Yet these many different versions of Barbie also connect back to the empowerment that many girls have felt while playing with her. There is no one version of Barbie. Barbie now embodies many professions, skin tones, and, as of 2016, body types. As of 2020, differently able Barbies are also available for sale, including those in wheelchairs and with hearing aids. The ability to see oneself in a doll can be a powerful tool for young children's creativity, enabling them to envision the different possibilities for their futures. Similarly, though Austen only completed 6 novels, she has been heralded for her variety of women heroines, from outspoken Elizabeth Bennet to matchmaking Emma Woodhouse to quiet but determined Fanny Price. Part of the fun of engaging with Austen's texts and the many adaptations made is to determine which Austen heroine one most closely aligns with. Popular internet quizzes from sites like BuzzFeed and even Penguin Random House invite participants to determine which Austen heroine are you. Just as Barbie allows children to envision different possibilities for their futures, Austen's variety of heroines allow readers to envision different possibilities for their pasts, what role they might have played in Regency era society. For the record, I think I want to be a Lizzie, but I'm probably actually an Eleanor. Austen's novels were written by a woman and primarily for women. Though men may have long been fans of Austen's works, it would have been assumed in the time they were written that novels were primarily being read by women, since women of the upper class were the ones with the most leisure time. According to Joan Acocella in The New Yorker, women readers were more likely to read fiction than men were. Female novelists probably drew female patrons just by being of the same sex, but they also, much more than men, dealt with problems that were central to the lives of women. Both sexes could have their lives destroyed by misfortunes in love and marriage, but women were more vulnerable, and those subjects were a near constant in books produced by women writers. The best, Jane Austen, the Brontes, George Eliot, and the worst alike. Similarly, though we know anecdotally and otherwise that there have always been boys and men and adults that are interested in playing with Barbies, it can be assumed that the dolls are made primarily for girls and invented by a woman. Interestingly, but perhaps not surprisingly, both Austen and Barbie have been heavily criticized and dismissed for being silly and irrelevant. Winston Churchill famously snubbed Austen's works. What calm lives they had, those people. No worries about the French Revolution or the crashing struggles of the Napoleonic Wars. Only manners controlling natural passion as far as they could, together with cultural explanations of any mischances. Ralph Waldo Emerson agreed her novels were imprisoned in the wretched conventions of English society, without genius, wit, or knowledge of the world. Never was life so pinched and so narrow. Barbie has faced similar criticism of being superficial and insignificant in scope. Amanda Levison details some of the controversy surrounding the doll. Some argue that her emphasis on fashion, beauty, and materialism strengthens stereotypes and limits girls' aspirations. They claim that Barbie fails to empower young girls to pursue careers in male dominated fields or engage in activities traditionally seen as boyish. According to some critics, Barbie's bright and unrelentingly pink femininity seemingly champions traditional gender roles and limits the ways in which young girls are taught to perform womanhood. Parents of young girls often worry about whether or not to allow their daughters to play with Barbie and what kind of impact the doll might have on them. As such, both Barbie and Austen are seen by some as being too light and bright and sparkling, a criticism that Austen famously lobbed at her own novel, Pride and Prejudice, perhaps her most well known work. While these criticisms of both Austen and Barbie might hold some validity, it is interesting that texts that center women's experiences and concerns are so often demeaned and dismissed as holding little value or importance. Those who would defend Austen's works might argue that Austen's novels championed the importance of the everyday domestic reality that most women of her time faced, which is what has in part allowed them to remain so universally understood and interpreted today. Austen's works have been adapted into virtually every time period, religious background, and cultural perspective imaginable, and her characters and themes translate easily across the spectrum. Similarly, while a doll that primarily functions as a fashion plate to experiment with different clothes and hairstyles might seem to be superficial, the role of doll play on the development of young girls has proven to be quite important. A study conducted by Dr. Sarah Gerson and her colleagues at Cardiff University shows that doll play helps children to develop empathy and internal state language, which helps them to focus on others' emotions and perspectives. Doll play was also noted to significantly help young children maintain social development through the pandemic. Beyond that, though, it's often frustrating that literature, media, and even consumer goods designed for women and girls have to justify their importance and seriousness. Sometimes things are just meant to be entertaining, or sometimes we can just enjoy something without having to justify why. Much in the same way that action movies, Nerf guns, bro comedies, professional sports, and other stereotypically masculine goods can have positive and intellectual benefits, but don't need to have think pieces written about them just to prove that they have worth in society. Just a thought. Last but not least, one key feature ties together the 2023 Barbie movie and the 1995 BBC miniseries of Pride and Prejudice. Though both have been lauded as feminist texts that center female concerns and issues, one cannot ignore the breakout performance in each text. Ryan Gosling as Ken in Barbie, and Colin Firth as Mr. Darcy in Pride and Prejudice. Colin Firth has become heavily conflated with the role of Mr. Darcy. Though other talented actors have also made their mark on the role, Firth is perhaps the actor most associated in pop culture with the image of Darcy. This is due in part to his performance. Aside from the iconic lake dive, the series was the first to focus so intensely on Darcy's character beyond his interactions with Elizabeth, featuring a more athletic Darcy who fenced and swam and rode horses. Note, if you've seen the Barbie movie, you know I'm going to refer back to this later. Firth's performance as Darcy was so popular that his image continues to be used as the template for Darcy replications, from the giant statue that traveled the globe to the giant cake built in his likeness to Anthony Bridgerton's hair in season 1. If you also follow the progression of VHS and DVD covers for the series, you'll notice an interesting trend that indicates what retailers discovered the audience was looking to buy. Similarly, although all the cast was critically acclaimed, and many agree that Margot Robbie was basically the physical embodiment of traditional Barbie, inarguably the standout performance from Barbie was Ryan Gosling. Before the movie even released, Gosling's I'm Just Ken music video was cut and released to help promote the film, and Gosling went on to perform this song at the 96th Academy Awards, as well as to call back to his performance when he hosted the September 30th, 2023 episode of SNL. Memes and gifs of Gosling as Ken and his confusion of horses with patriarchy, see that callback I just made, have heavily populated social media, as has his catchphrase, I'm Kenough. Mattel has released official merchandise featuring this slogan, as have a number of knockoff brands. Though it's difficult to track the endurance of Gosling's performance as Ken since it was so recent, it doesn't feel too hyperbolic to hazard a guess that he will likely become as conflated with his role as Firth is with Darcy. But beyond both men just being attractive, talented, and entertaining in their respective roles, why have they stood out as such iconic performances? If you followed any of my previous virtual JaneCon presentations, you know I have a lot to say about the importance of Darcy's wet white shirt. Go and check out that video if you haven't already. The TLDR version is that Darcy's white shirt is more than just something to help our man look sexy, but it also stands as visual coding for the female gaze, placing the women as the subjects of the text and the men as the objects. Beyond that, it also signals male vulnerability. Darcy in his white shirt is not the strong, proud patriarchal estate holder, but a man physically and emotionally exposed, ready for love. The I'm Just Ken song exposes a similar vulnerability behind Ken's performance of intense masculinity after his exposure to the real world. Ken reveals his rudeness to Barbie and constant fighting with Simu Liu's Ken stems from insecurity, a fear that he won't be perceived as enough despite his best efforts. Gosling's Ken lays himself emotionally bare with his song, which features him throwing off the shackles of traditional masculinity by singing, dancing, holding hands with other men, and even exchanging cheek kisses. Unlike traditional masculine roles in many of the films that feature the male gaze, Ken doesn't achieve catharsis by isolating himself from society, exercising intense violence, or even through experiencing romantic love, but by strengthening the bonds of male friendship. While Darcy does find true love at the end of Pride and Prejudice, part of his journey also includes learning to be a better friend to his tried and true Regency bro, Mr. Bingley. Early in the story, Darcy assumes he knows better than Bingley and helps to persuade him into leaving behind Jane Bennet because he believes her to be indifferent and pressured by her family. By the end of the novel, Darcy tries to make things right with Bingley and brings him back to propose to Jane. Though much of this development happens off the page and off screen, we have to assume that Darcy needed to be fully honest with Bingley about his role in keeping Jane and Bingley apart. While that may have been an uncomfortable moment in their friendship, it also likely shifted the dynamics between the two men, so they can now interact more closely as equals. Though it may seem strange to have men be the focus of these texts that are supposed to center women's stories, both men offer an alternative to the strict structured roles of traditional masculinity. Darcy is able to become more vulnerable through love. Ken is able to find peace through self-exploration and friendships. Both texts also clearly offer women the power of choice. Both Lizzie and Barbie guide their romantic relationships and set their parameters, either choosing to accept or reject their suitors. Because of the similarity in reception history, audience, cultural impact, and breakout performances, it now seems obvious why Gerwig chose the 1995 BBC Pride and Prejudice to be her meta-text within a text in the 2023 Barbie movie. Though on the surface the two texts might seem to have little in common, Barbie and Austen are both major pop culture icons that have been designed primarily for a female audience and have been majorly misunderstood by those outside of that demographic. Now, the only final question is, can we come up with a slogan for Darcy using a pun in his name that's as good as I'm Kenough? Because I've been brainstorming and I got nothing. Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching. For any interested, as promised, I have some book news. Book 1 and 2 of the Austen University Mysteries series are out, as are 2 prequel novellas. Pre-orders are also open for Crime and Culpability, a Jane Austen mystery anthology, edited by yours truly, featuring short works by Regina Jeffers, Rhianna Everly, Jeanette Watts, Michael Rands, Lene Elizabeth, Emma Dalgetty, and me. Check out details for all books down in the links below.